Welcome to the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville. And this week we are excited because we are continuing our journey on the USS Titan. We are discussing Star Trek PICARD, Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender. And before anything else happens, guys, I think we need to do a little spoiler alert. Raffi wants to let us know. Shaw wants to let us know. So make sure you've seen the episode. All right. I'm really excited. Now, of course, usually we have a full crew here, but because it's a holiday weekend, we have a skeleton crew. But I'm very happy that we do have, of course, the Oracle, the scientist, the Star Trek badass, Haley Stoddard. What's going on?
Hello. Yes, I'm excited to be here. That's right. Skeleton crews. Sometimes it happens, and I mean, this episode this week sure definitely kind of felt like a skeleton crew, I guess. So we got this. I mean, we might not go anywhere, but we can defend ourselves. And if something anomalous happens, I'm on it. And we got the captain, so I think we're going to be okay.
Well, with the rest of the Titan crew slowly getting offed in one way or another, at least they do have, like we do, the ultimate skeleton crew to keep everyone here entertained, talking about Star Trek PICARD Surrender. So, Haley, let's go ahead and get right into the Admiral's log.
Yes. Vadic locks all the systems aboard the Titan from the crew. She threatens to execute the crew if Jack does not surrender, which he does after she kills a lieutenant. Data's persona breaks the partition from Lore's persona and, realizing he cannot overpower Lore, surrenders his memories, which consume Lore and allow Data full control of the android. The rest of the crew rush to the computer core to plug Data into Titan systems, which he manipulates to protect Jack and vent the bridge, killing Vadic. Worf and Raffi rescue Riker and Troy, who spent much of their detainment discussing their marital issues and desire for adventure, bringing them aboard the Titan and reuniting with the crew of the Enterprise D. Worf finds Picard's original corpse with his parietal lobe removed for research on the Shrike, then returns to the Titan. Shaw orders Seven to blow up the Shrike. Troy encourages Jack to confront his fear and step through the red door he sees in his visions. Oh, my.
To be continued. Oh.
Yes.
All right. So I want to, first of all, we need some first reactions here, because I was kind of curious where this episode was going to go, because we're like, okay, are we going to get the whole crew back together? Is it going to happen? It's going to happen. And we got it. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I wanted to go over a couple of laugh out loud moments, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Not of course, in that scene that I was just showing on the video.
No.
Vadic and all of her victims behind her, or soon to be victims. But I did want to mention a couple of funny things here. I want to mention when Worf rescues Riker and Deanna, Worf goes, after Deanna and Riker embrace him, one's personal space is a right. Oh. Worf goes, Deanna, I have counted the days since I last saw you, like waves in the ocean, constant and unending. I have thought of your empathic gifts often during my self-evaluation. Deanna goes, well, that's wonderful, Worf. Riker, inappropriate. Worf continues, says, the work I've done on myself and level of sensitivity is that I have achieved has been in more ways than one. And Riker, is this a rescue mission or continuation of the torture?
Oh my gosh. So funny. So funny.
Oh God, the look on Riker's face during that moment between Deanna and Worf was just hilarious.
Yeah, super great. Well, and it's funny because, it calls back to that relationship that they had, but that was like a while ago. So that's a really deep kind of cut. So it's I loved it though. It was great.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, and then when now I have an older picture here, and I'll show it right now. But I love it when Geordi and when Picard and Beverly meet up with Geordi, and of course Data/Lore, and Geordi is obviously trying to find out if he's a changeling or not. Geordi goes, 6 years ago, you brought a gift to my anniversary dinner on Rigel. Picard, a Chateau Picard Bordeaux, which you said was too dry because your taste in wine is pedestrian at best. Geordi, definitely Picard.
Yep. Pedestrian at
Snap,
best.
snap,
I
right
think that's
there.
how I need to label my my wine tastings and whatnot. Pedestrian at best. I am no connoisseur either.
Also, too, I love that when the crew is finally together at the table, which we're going to discuss a little more deeply. I love it how Worf goes, I have slaughtered countless enemies over the years and considered sending their heads to all of you. But I was advised that that was passive aggressive.
This makes me appreciate that the writers really took care to make Worf still have the funny lines without intentionally giving him the funny lines. Because that was all of TNG and into Deep Space Nine even. He was funny, but it was so unintentional, and it's brilliant because he's so serious. Yes. Klingons are so serious, and that's, I think, what makes it the best ever.
I think though Doran, especially during this season, he's let a little bit of like Worf has developed a sense of humor.
Yeah,
but I think because of his Klingon ways and his reputation, he like barely lets it leak out a little bit. He does a little bit, whether it's the way that he'll say it or a little twinkle in his eye or a little smile or just a little movement, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Also, too, just a quick mention, when Worf I love the fact that after the rescue of when Worf and Raffi rescue Riker and Deanna, and they have the fight and all that kind of stuff against the changeling, and Raffi just kicking some butt. I love how Worf still continues to critique Raffi's fighting skills even in battle. Yes. And Riker looks to Raffi going, "You're scary."
Yeah.
Your first overall reactions to this episode, Billy?
Like you, I was not sure where we were going to go with this episode. So, again, I don't watch anything. I try to avoid everything. And so after last week's episode, I was like, all right, this is going to be really interesting. What's going to happen? And I really didn't know what to expect at all. And so I was really pleasantly surprised with how they did this episode and where it ended and where it's still potentially going to go, because it did kind of wrap up some of these threads, we talked about last week. And there's so many different things, and are they going to get it all wrapped up in the last 3 episodes? And I think they are. There's a little bit more still to go, but they did really, really well with this episode. I really enjoyed it. It was very emotional in all the spectrums. So it was great.
Yeah, it's weird because you would think this reunion would happen like maybe even the last episode, and stuff would kind of be rushed together. But it's nice to know, as you said, they are taking some threads and sewing them up, and kind of moving on to the bigger end game here, which they have with the holiday. What's it called again? I'm forgetting.
Frontier Day.
Thank you, Frontier Day.
Yes.
And I think that's cool that there's still time before that happens. Still kind of curious if they're going to leave something out there for another crew to tackle another parts of the threat. Maybe most of it will be wrapped up. We don't know, but I do feel like at least they're giving us some closure on certain things that we were hoping to see and see what's going to happen and stuff. So yeah. Even that one little scene where Raffi and Deanna meet for the first time, or they're both looking at the monitor, and Deanna goes, "Deanna, Raffi, weird, huh?"
Yeah.
That's not exactly what she said, but that's how it felt.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I like it. I like that they're not rushing certain things that you would think would be rushed, and it could be rushed in some other type of show, and it's a slow burn, and I really am appreciating that in comparison to a lot of other television and a lot of other Star Trek shows. It's really just kind of paced really, really well.
I got a little section I put in here at the opening here that I, of course, thought of you, Haley. Be a fellow musician and music fan, especially when it comes to soundtracks and stuff like that, and little music keys that we get a lot of in this season. And I call this the musical mentions here. First of all, the Klingon theme once again plays during Worf's rescue of Riker and Troy. That, you know, that really intense thing right when Riker, like, you know, or when Worf puts his blade through the chest from behind. And that's such like a Klingon thing to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Jerry Goldsmith's Data theme from Nemesis plays when the merged Data reunites with the entire TNG crew and assures Picard that he hasn't betrayed his season 1 copy's final wishes.
Yeah.
And the TNG theme begins playing once the entire TNG crew reunites and sits at the conference table. Did you catch these?
I did, yes. You know, it's so fun. I really love that TOS Klingon theme. Like, that is just one of those that I really, really appreciate it. And I love it. So anytime they go back and they harken back to that and bring it back in, it just gets me all kerfuffled.
Kerfuffled. I love it. Well, we're going to go ahead and get right into the next away mission. Let's go ahead and beam on down there. All right. I'm excited. Now we got several topics here we're going to touch in this first away mission here. And the first thing I want to talk about, I got the picture up here as well, is that Riker and Deanna moment and what kind of came about from it. Now, we are going to talk a little bit more about the actor's response to this and the look back on the relationship when we touch on the ready room later in away mission number 2. But this was a very important scene for us as fans to see kind of like where they were at and where they've been. And Riker and Deanna's quiet marital discussion is amidst the Titan takeover and the hostage situation. And I love this particular moments here. And there's some lines here that from the dialogue, I did want to bring to discussion here, Haley. Yeah. The first one is Deanna goes, "Well, you should know that the changeling came to our home pretending to be you. He was pretty charming too." Riker goes, "Really? How charming?" Deanna goes, "Good in bed, bad in pizza." And Riker goes, "So just like me." But then things get a little serious, of course. Yeah. Riker goes, "Because of our son died, Deanna, I needed to feel the grief." Deanna says, "Your grief was taking over. You were disappearing from us." Riker continues, "And you used your betazoid powers to push yourself inside my head to dull the pain. And when that wasn't enough for you, we both gave up." Deanna replies, "Well, unlike you, I felt the weight of everyone's grief, not just my own." Riker, "It was my last connection to him, and you tried to erase it." And in one of the most important lines I've ever heard Deanna say, and I thought this was really momentous because I know how this feels. And this is a good reminder to everyone who's dealing with grief and pain. Not to erase it, take it, help you carry it. But I forgot one thing that all counselors should remember. You can't skip to the end of healing. That hit me right there, Haley. What about you?
Yeah. You know, I love this because, you know, we got the hint at the beginning of the season that Riker and Troy were having problems. But we didn't know what exactly what it was and why. And so this was really a beautiful scene, and I'm so glad that they touched on it and allowed us to see it rather than saying it happened and then not really showing it or not showing it fully. And so I loved it. It was beautiful. It was humorous, as their relationship has always been, but it was also incredibly touching. And when they started talking about Riker's pain and his grief and, you know, her trying to carry that, I thought, wow, that's so important, because it is important to feel those things. It's hard in the moment to feel that, but we have to feel it. We have to go through that. We have to go through all those 5 stages of grief in order to move on. And as she says, you know, get to the part of healing and actually moving forward. And so for her to acknowledge that, you know, I did damage by letting you not feel it was really powerful. And also just goes to show how much she cares because she was feeling it too. And so in a way, she was also probably trying to cover her own pain of that loss. Um, but it did more damage than it did good. And so I really appreciated that conversation.
That's a great point. And I love how it starts off with it being a little funny, and then it gets to the seriousness of, you know, how their marriage was affected by their grief of losing their son. And I like that there was a tragedy that tested their marriage, tested their love, and that was brought together in this episode. And that's what makes this episode a really good one, because, and we'll get to the other character moments between our favorite, the main TNG crew here, once before they all get together, that these two are, had a moment of all places in a jail, which I thought was kind of funny. And that's something that's going to come up at a dinner table. I can just imagine in some fan fiction, like, it took us until us getting, captured by changelings and put in a jail that we were able to kind of come to a peace. But the thing that I do like about that is just a good discussion on grief. Like you were talking about the stages of grief, but also like the fact that they were able to end on that a little lighthearted too, about their distaste. Apparently they did not like living in a penthe.
Yeah.
And them talking about like the birds. And then like, I love how the thing about how the wooden, it was the wooden deck would like,
creak.
The woodpeckers, but then like the deck, how it felt like it was always screaming at Riker and it making him feel old or whatever it was, creaking and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool.
It's interesting.
I love that scene though. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and just sitting here talking with you about this, it makes me think, the episode is surrender and how much that theme kind of runs throughout, right? So Jack surrenders himself, and I know we'll get to that. Data surrenders to Lore. It's almost as if, even though these two aren't necessarily surrendering anything, but they are surrendering to each other, if that makes sense. They are surrendering these emotions and the pain that they've felt together, but also separate from each other, and really getting back to the heart of their relationship and their love for each other, and that lightheartedness of coming around and saying, okay, why are we still living on this planet? We don't like it. I don't like it. You don't like it. Why are we still here? Deanna saying, I miss the city. I miss people's emotions. I miss people being happy and sad, and, the contradictions. And so I like that, because it's like, it was a mutual surrender for both of them.
Yeah. Which makes me excited for the next chapter of the Riker and Deanna, lives, and to see like, where are they going to go now? Where are they going to live? What adventures are they going to be on a ship again? Are they going to do something? So I love how that kind of came about there. All right, let's go ahead and get into the next topic here. This one's a lot of fun. The band is back together. The original TNG cast is back and sharing a scene. Now, of course, we'll go back and talk about the Data stuff and all that. But I need to jump to this because when this came out on Thursday, the only time I had a chance to watch it was during my lunch break at work in my car. So I'm on my cell phone, and I pop up Paramount Plus, and I put it like where, and it was kind of like bright out, and I was trying to make it dark. So I was sticking my phone like where the odometers are. And then I took my sunshade and put the sunshade up so I could see it. Yeah. This is what we do.
Great.
This is what we do. But like, I'm watching it because I have an hour for lunch, so I got through most of it. But I got to this scene, I'm like in my car, like eating my lunch. Like, oh, I can't believe this is happening after all this
dust
time.
in your eye, dust in your eye. Yep.
Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, I just absolutely love this. It was great to finally all see them together, and especially the scene here where Deanna reaches over to Beverly and they hold each other's hands, and how they make a little comment about, your advice and all that kind of stuff. I thought was great. And here's a picture I have actually from the ready room where they, in between takes, they all, of course, stopped and had to pose together. There's a bunch of, there's a video of it too. You can see where they're just all all of the flashes from the cameras are going on and off. And
I'm sure.
What a moment to be on that set at that time and see all of these people here. So
yeah.
What was when that scene opened up and they all go into the conference table and they all sit down?
Yeah, I was verklempt and had lots of feels because, it's interesting. When they were going all into the room, I was like, all right, cool. I'm good. And it really wasn't until they all sat down that I was like, yeah, now I'm feeling the emotions and I'm feeling, all the things. And so wonderful because again, we've known this was going to happen, but we didn't know how it was going to happen. And I think it was so well done and such an honor. And I'm sure that, they themselves were probably just enjoying this just as much. The conversation, the catching up, the reconnecting. And I love how Dr. Crusher is saying, I thought of you guys, even though I wasn't talking to you guys. I've always thought of you guys, and you guys have always kind of been with me. And, Deanna saying, you've always been with me. I've had conversations with you and you give really great advice and things like that. And so it's really just so wonderful to see them all together. I can only imagine thinking of, Ed Spaliers, who is, a Star Trek fan. I'm sure even the people on the show were probably, if they were other fans, because, we haven't had conversations with any of the other cast at this point.
Yeah, do you think everyone that wasn't in the scene that was a cast member was
freaking out, losing their minds? Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe they weren't supposed to show up that day, but they did anyway. And
yes.
they're in their sweats and track suits, and they're like, have the masks on behind, because they were all working with masks behind the camera and stuff. And they're like, I got to be here for this.
Yeah. I mean, how can you not, how can you not, after all these years, to have them all sitting around another conference table? Because that's where the stuff gets done, y'all. Things get figured out and plans get put in motion and backup plans are there. And so, yeah.
What is nice how this starts. Okay, first of all, a little backstory here too. And this, of course, Vadic is killed, and the entire crew of the Shrike is finally destroyed, and she gets sucked out of the emergency hatch. Data.
We got to talk about that. That was insane.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that. Data successfully merged with Lore, and we'll talk about that. And so this is the Enterprise D/E alums are also finally reunited after reassembling for the first time since the Shinzon crisis over 20 years earlier. But what I like is how Picard starts off, saying how, and I'm paraphrasing here, how this is his family and it's so wonderful to have them all back together. And then they all kind of do their own little introductions and say a couple things. Worf says the funny thing about the heads, and then everyone knows it's time for Picard to get serious, and he starts, getting into the plan. But oh God, so good. So good.
I know. One thing I do have to say about this, I am not crazy about this conference table. What if you accidentally hit buttons that you're or a feature where it locks it on your phone, so at least it's still lit up and showing things. And also, what's it showing?
I feel like T. Earl Grey is not being represented here too. I mean, it should be there on the table. But
it's how do you not? There has to be a lock feature, and use your fingerprint to unlock it, because otherwise you'd be accidentally touching stuff and doing things on that table. It would not be good, I don't think.
This is true.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the next topic here. All right. Lore's assimilation of Data's memories causes Lore to be consumed by the essence of Data himself, completing their merger by wiping out Lore's malevolent personality forever, leaving mostly Data with a little bit of Lore humor thrown in. Lore could not resist taking Data's memories as trophies of his victory in their battle in the center of the mind, and Data, realizing this is why he willingly handed them over, as those memories would effectively transform Lore into Data. Quote, I'm still Data, but also Lore before, and that Dr. Soon programmed into this body. Now, this is a big, big deal when it comes to the whole Data lore thing, especially, and what a moment for Brent Spiner. The question is, there's always been something with Data that's missing. Lore was missing the good guy, the humanity, and Data was missing jokes and striving to be something more human and stuff like that. And then there's the soon part of this as well. But, and I'll get into it a little bit more later. Terry Matalas was talking about how to get Data into this. And, he talked about the aging and all this kind of stuff. But I thought personally, this was a great way, Haley, to not only finally put to rest all of the is he going to be bad sometime later down the line? Is there going to be an emotion chip issue? There's always that thing that was hanging out there. But with this possibly being the last time the crew's together, I love how they kind of sewn up all of this into this is now Data. He can use contractions. He can, still have some humor and get jokes and be a little more relaxed in a way to where maybe he doesn't have to look also very androidish as well. And we get a little more Brent Spiner in this, which I think is a good thing. I love this. I'm going to call it final version of Data. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was intrigued of how they were going to bring back Data and Brent Spiner into this. And I was a little skeptical, I'm not going to lie, of like what was going to happen. And I think this was perfect. It worked out. And in a way, again, that I was surprised. Like at first I was screaming at my television, like, no crap, lore, no, bad, really bad, really bad. Because lore will just fit right in with these changelings and everything. And then it was such a neat, unique twist to take all these memories of Data that he has and to give them to lore. And using psychology on lore in a very interesting way to manipulate lore into having the things that lore was always jealous Data had. Yes, lore was always the evil one, but he really was jealous of the relationships, of the connections, of the things that Data had that he never got to have because he was such a manipulative, narcissistic little piece of crap. But it was so wonderful for that to be what turned him. And I love this melding of now we have Data that uses contractions and is truly so excited to be back with his friends, even though, yes, he did want to die. And I love that he touched on that. Like that version of me is gone. And so that death is still honored. And now I can begin anew. And Geordi's response of like, Data, like, I am so glad to have my friend back. And I just was like, hey, now we need more Data and Geordi on the holodeck, please. Please. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit more because that is definitely worth touching on. But I kind of have a feeling like Spot was the magic wand here a little bit, because we all love Spot, and I don't know, it just was a great way, really well designed and thought of how we need to get rid of lore. We have to get rid of them. And in the interview with Terry, when he said that he called up Brent and saying, look, we're doing this reunion, but I don't want to ever see you do Soong again. And Brent, like, I'm with you there, but how can we have this reunion not have Data in this? What can we do to come to this? And so that was fascinating that Terry and his genius with this and knowing how important this is and this character is. And Data was always the center of a lot of the movies as well, because it was kind of like, Picard, Data, and then almost everyone else. They always, two always seem to have like the higher storytelling points in those. And from what I remember too, even the bigger paychecks, to be honest with you. And so this, this character, for reasons too, because Data is such a popular character, and seeing him die and sacrifice himself in Nemesis and then come back as this kind of, shell of an android and B4 was tough to watch and tough to kind of sit with all these years. And we all speculated, like, and then there was like, stories of B4 finally becoming more of a self-aware, and then I think in comics or books or something, he got into Starfleet or whatever, and then that was touched on later in the earlier seasons of Picard. So it was just a nice turn of this character, and it was nice to get there. So
One thing I noticed, this when they were looking at like the brain map and stuff like that, that's the scene from the opening credits. I always wondered, as we've watched the show, if that had something to do with Jack, the little nerve centers and stuff. And turns out it wasn't. It was because of Data and lore. So
yeah. All right. One thing I did want to touch on real quick here. I think it's important to touch on the Shaw and Seven moments in this episode, because they were, of course, captured, but there is a couple important things that happened. First of all, Seven saved Shaw's life in the turbo lift, and Shaw is a little upset when they're captured by Vadic on the bridge and saying, you should have sacrificed me and killed her. And she says, I made the decision, I would do it again. And they've been bumping heads, of course, but I think that there's this really cool next respect between them, I guess is the best way to put it. That they're starting to understand each other a little bit more, and Shaw is, understanding who Seven is, and she's still saying, call me Seven. But I like that they had those little moments being captive, but then when Vadic is sucked out, and Shaw's like, stations everyone, and then gives the command to Seven to fire and have everyone else destroy the Shrike here. But I just kind of wish that there was a moment where he would have said, Seven, make the command, instead of just doing it. But maybe we'll get a little more of that next episode. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I really appreciated this because, again, it shows it's almost like, it's not that he doesn't trust her, but there just is something there that he doubts her enough that he's not quite sure where they stand.
Yeah.
And, it's not just, I'm Seven. It is, my name is Seven. And like, she said it very aggressively. And I was so grateful for that. Actually, I think that was probably my favorite little moment in this episode, because she's tired of it. She's exhausted. Yes, that was her name, but she went most of her life not being called Annika.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, like, if I had found out that I had this name that I had not been called for years, I'd be like, no, that's not my name. I don't go by that. You will call me this, because, and again, it's that respect. And so I'm really hoping that they can come to mutually respect each other before this is over. And maybe he does call her Seven finally. And he finally acknowledges that is how he can best show respect to her, is by doing that rather than calling her by her actual name.
Yeah. That was a cool moment. I did catch that, but I'm looking forward to seeing more what's going to happen between these two, sharing more scenes coming up. By the way, I forgot to mention with the whole Data and Lore thing. Do you think that when Data gave Spot to Lore, I thought it would have been funny if he also gave him a lint roller saying, he's yours now. I just thought of that.
Yeah, seriously.
Real quick, back to Shaw here and Seven. If they decide to do a Titan show and have Shaw and Seven maybe come back for it, would you be up for that?
Yeah. I'd be down.
Me too. All right. Couple more things here. This is a moment that started to make me tear up too. I'll be honest with you. Data and Geordi, we have loved their friendship for so many years. The back and forth, the Geordi explaining the jokes and among other things. But actually, I think Data might have gotten more relationship advice or relationships than he did, probably. I just say it. But I love how, and I have it written here, that Data and Geordi joyfully reaffirm their close friendship following the merger of Data's final resurrection. Geordi can't help laughing when he realized Data was pluckishly trolling him about not using contractions despite having clearly done so. But, you know, the moment where Geordi says, how happy I am to have my friend back, and there's tears in his eye. There's tears in my eyes. Your thoughts, Haley, on this night. And this is what's great about this episode is all of these main characters who have bonded in one way or another have these little moments.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this was emotional for me too. And again, because of my love for Geordi, and I loved the Geordi and Data relationship watching TNG growing up. And so I was so excited to have this moment and for them to be able to have this little moment together, right? Before everybody else comes in and joins in on this conversation, that he's so excited to have his friend back. And it was just so beautiful and touching. And again, you know, these actors, like, they've remained friends for, you know, decades, but they played these characters for so long that you can't imagine that they wouldn't have an emotional connection. And in that, be like, Data died, you know, and for LeVar Burton, I can't imagine, you know, to not, even though, like, yes, they're characters, but to know that that character died and you don't get to, that your characters don't get to see each other again would be really hard for playing these characters for so long.
Oh, God, yeah. And these are some of my favorite moments between the crew members in TNG, you know, and I just, they were best friends. And I loved that this blind guy who is an engineer is friends with a fake human android.
Yes.
You know, and they make it work. It's great. And I think they were very good for each other. And I love it.
Well, and I think that's what the, you know, what is so beautiful about it is that who else would better be able to understand, like, on a mechanical level and build that friendship than the engineer. I mean, it makes complete sense. Now, if it had been like Data had been best friends with, I don't know, Argyle or something like that, you know, like, that would just be weird. But the engineer, it completely makes sense to me. And so I just love it. I love their little adventures. You know, people love the, oh my gosh, blanking on names so bad today. It's a day. I know people love Bashir and what's his name?
O'Brien.
O'Brien, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, fans. Bashir and O'Brien's relationship on Deep Space Nine, and
I love Paris and Harry Kim's relationship.
Yeah, you know, and everyone has like, you know, these relationships in these shows, but to me, like, these guys is my favorite.
And the moments between, like, Spock and McCoy, I loved them.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
yeah.
And also,
I know that Kirk and Spock have the ultimate broship, but I love it when the Doc and Spock are together. I think it's great.
Yeah, but also I have to say, I mean, I love what they've done for the makeup for LeVar with the eyes. I love how they've brought that blue back in from, you know, from the movies and stuff. And so I love it. And props. LeVar looks fantastic still.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Great. All right. We got to talk about this. Vadic's flash frozen body crumbles on impact with the Shrike, and the Titan finishes the ship off with proton torpedoes before heading back towards Federation space. Vadic is dead? Question mark? I mean, we saw it like shatter, you know, but they're changelings. We don't know what this new weird changeling thing can happen, but I'm guessing Vadic is dead. Brilliantly played by Amanda Plummer. Boy, did she have some good scenes on the bridge when it comes down to even executing you know, one of the crew, which was very tough to watch. But even like when she catches the guy being controlled by Jack, you know, and then realizing, Jack, oh, you're in there, you know. Oh, she had some great moments. She was wonderful in this. Your thoughts on supposedly the end of Vatic?
Yeah, bye, Felicia. So she got yeeted, to use some terminology, vernacular that my kid would use, yeeted off the bridge there.
Yes.
No, there is no way that she's coming back. That was, I almost had thought that maybe as her body was going towards her ship, that like a hatch door was going to open and like they were going to revive her and stuff.
Oh, we got a little
If
frozen up
she'd
here.
gotten on
Wait,
ship.
Haley, sorry, hold on. You froze up for a second there.
Oh.
Continue with her body heading towards the Shrike.
Oh yeah. So with her body heading towards the Shrike, you know, I thought doors were going to open, they were going to rescue her, in which case she could have been revived.
Right.
But that didn't happen. And space is cold and she froze, and even though she's pretending to be a solid and can keep a solid state for a lot longer, she's still a thing of goo, very gross goo.
Yes.
She's dead. There's no coming back, because also her body hit and then shortly thereafter they blew up the ship, so pretty sure she's gone. Hallelujah.
Where would you rank Vatic in the list of excellent Star Trek villains?
That's a good question.
Top 10, top 20, you know?
I definitely probably top 15, maybe top 10. I could see it.
I could see her. Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would say if I were to, I don't have a list, but if I were to think of someone off the top of my head, you know, I thought Tolian Soren from Generations was a good villain. Some of the Klingons, the Duras, all the Durases, basically, you know?
Yeah.
Are definitely good villains there. Of course, there's probably like 3 from Deep Space Nine that get right up there, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No one beats Kai Wynn, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. Ducat as well, you know, so, but I could see her squeaking into the top 10 because, man, she had a good role.
It's the creepiness factor, right?
Yeah.
She was creepy as all get out and extremely unhinged as well. So, you know, there's that factor. I mean, you know, sitting there and scaring 2 crew members thinking that they were going to die and then completely flipping it and killing a different lieutenant. That, you know, is a cruelty that is pretty unmatched in comparison to a lot of other villains who, you know, it's interesting because a lot of them were out for their own gain, right?
Right.
She was being manipulated by somebody else for somebody else's. And so, you know, she kind of had the luxury of doing whatever she pleased to meet that end, whatever that is. We still don't know, but so she was scary just in that sheer fact that like she could do whatever she wanted as long as it met the end goal of this person who was pulling her strings.
Right.
So, you know, she wasn't out for herself. She was out for, you know, her fellow changelings that are this faction, but then also whoever this person is that's controlling everything. So
I love the plan where they finally got Jack up to the bridge and he's holding the so-called bomb. It kind of reminds me of like a thermal detonator in Star Wars. And that says, yeah, this may not kill you, Vatic, but it will definitely kill me. But instead it was a little force field.
Yeah.
I thought was great. And I loved how they used the force field on the bridge and then sucked everyone out with the emergency hatch. I thought that was really cool. Did not know that the bridge window had was able a breakaway window and be a hatch. I thought that was great.
Who knew the view screen / window opened up like that? And why is that? I mean, I guess we'll talk about it because in my head, yeah, that's really, really cool. But then also
if your ship is taken over, you have a way to suck all the baddies out of it.
Yeah. But I mean, on the other hand, it doesn't quite make sense. It's kind of like in Discovery where they make the view screen go away. Like that's even worse, like in my opinion. Like I can get it like sliding open and having like a seal in the middle, but that's really, really weird, but also really, really genius. Why has the bridge never had like some like escape hatch and airlock to blow people out of in all the years of Star Trek? Why?
My ideal bridge would be a full see-through window, but then have like a digital like readout, like a picture in picture. If you're like if you're looking at the ship, right? And whoever's on the bridge wants to talk to your bridge, the ship is still always in view. And then like all of a sudden the captain of the other bridge or whoever comes on in a little side wing, because you want to kind of keep an eye on the ship too, you know, like you see a little light coming from like, you know, the weapons port or something, or you see someone coming from behind them and maybe you'll see it before the sensors do. I don't know. That's my ideal bridge, but a breakaway bridge. Yeah, I get it. You know?
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I was not expecting that. So that was, again, genius. Don't quite understand the physics or the laws behind it and exactly how that would work, but it was really cool.
Hey, it's good Star Trek. There we go. All right.
Yes.
Another thing. Okay, this is the Jack and Picard changeling plan / Deanna to the rescue. One major threat has been dealt with, but there's still a bunch of changelings within Starfleet's rank. Frontier Day is mere hours away. The Titan is desperately understaffed and still believed to have gone rogue, and nobody knows what the changelings plan to do. The research Raffi brought from the Shrike has yet to be evaluated, still with the core crew of the NCC 1701D/E, Jean-Luc Picard, William Riker, Data, Beverly Crusher, Geordi LaForge, Worf, and Deanna Troi assemble again for the first time in 20 years. Starfleet has a fighting chance. Deanna recognizes that there is a darkness lingering around Jack, not in him, but on him. She speaks with him and gets straight to the questioning of the red door. Jack is scared of what's on the other side, but Deanna's offer to open it with him, jumping into pensive flashback or whatever that door lives. Jack reaches out and grasps the doorknob. Just real quick, during the scene when they're looking at the old body of Picard here, did you have to go back and rewind and go, wait, is he the dude naked? Nope, he had underwear.
No, I wasn't fully paying attention to that much, I guess.
I was weird. I guess I did. Okay. So
it's fine.
It's full disclosure. So this whole thing with Jack, and I love the fact that Deanna is the one that's going to go into his mind, because if anyone can do it, she can do it. Right. And they teased that's obviously going to be one of the first things that happens in next week's episode. But what is your thoughts on what's going on here? And we have something going on. They wanted Picard's, body for obvious reasons. What is going on here with Jack? What do you think's happening here? What did you get out of this scene?
This is still so weird. Like, I'm still really intrigued because I don't quite know. And what I try to piece together or think could be the thing, and I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. Because if we go back, they took Picard's old biological body that's dead, but somehow they decided to keep it. Anyway. But then they only took out the parts of the brain that were affected by the Aromatic syndrome, which doesn't make any sense.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it's weird.
It's so weird. And I'm sure at the end of it, we're just going to be like, well, duh, that makes sense, kind of thing. Or like, oh, that's so cool. But right now in the moment, it's just like, okay, there's that. There's Jack. And I think my favorite thing about this was that Jack told his parents, there is something wrong with me. I can do this thing, and I'm able to do this, and I don't know what it is, and it scares me, and it's getting stronger and whatnot. And so, it's just so interesting. I love that he was able to open up about that because he didn't know how they would take it.
Yeah, I love that he's afraid and he's in a way grasping for help from this crew,
Mm-hmm.
and he's having these wonderful moments with his his father finally. And I love that one moment too, that when Picard assures him, "I am here for you. I'm here."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting, and I have faith that the writing is going to really wow us with what's going on here instead of what happened with Discovery and the Burn.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but I love that that what's been happening in the writing and understanding these characters, that we're going to find something out. But I did want to share something with you here, Haley, that I've been hearing some people talk about. It's
Mm-hmm.
very good chance it's not going to happen, but we got this Mr. as and I'm going to quote my good friend John Mosby, who loves this season of Star Trek Picard, Mr. McFloaty Face, the changeling face that Vadic's been communicating with. He calls him Mr. McFloaty Face. Wondering, who is this guy? What's going on with this? What is he? Definitely a changeling or something like that? And there's been some fan theories out there, and I've heard this, and I had to share it because I thought it was interesting and funny. Armis. Oh my God, Haley, you just snorted. I love that reaction so much. Is Armis getting some revenge on Picard?
Oh my God.
And I have pictures of episode. I have a picture of McFloaty Face, and I have a picture of Star Trek Lower Decks Armis maiden parents. I wish I had someone to torture.
Oh my gosh. I've been racking my brain.
Have you heard about this?
No, I have not. This is hence my reaction. Oh my gosh, this is great.
You totally Star Trek snorted there. I just want to say that was funny.
I've been trying to rack my brain as to like who would want to take revenge so much on Starfleet.
It seems personal though with Picard, doesn't it?
It does, but I wonder if not. Because so we've got the changelings. We know that they are now able to mimic more so humans than they ever were before. And we haven't seen them take on the form of other races. So clearly just as humans. And they take Picard's body. They want the part of his brain that had Aromatic syndrome. But now I wonder if it ever actually was Aromatic syndrome. Like, right, they mentioned that before, that if Jack doesn't actually have it, it's something else. Maybe Picard never actually really had it either, and it's something else. And maybe Picard had this thing that's going on with Jack in his brain, right? These abilities. And my guess is they want to take these and use these abilities to further change these changelings. So not only can they fully mimic humans and get away with it and pass all these tests that were put into place after Deep Space Nine, but now they want to take them and they want to make them even more powerful and strong by giving them these abilities that clearly never manifested in Picard and they thought was Aromatic syndrome, but it actually wasn't. But they're manifesting in Jack because all science, all our genes, you can be a carrier for something, but if you don't have a protein to activate that particular gene, and it's a particular protein that has to activate it, you're never going to exhibit that gene. If you have the protein, you will. So your hair color, your eye color, yes, you have these genetic genes that are passed down from, parents, grandparents, these combinations, but it is a protein that activates which one actually ends up being. So your eye color, your hair color, if you have curly hair, if you don't have curly hair, all of that has to be activated by a protein. Yes, they have traced like things like autism to certain genes, but if you don't have a protein to activate it, you're not going to experience it. But you could pass that on to your kids, and your kids could have a protein that activates it. So my brain is thinking there is something there that never exhibited in Picard. It's exhibiting in Jack because for whatever reason, he has a protein that activates it. And they are trying to mass produce that in these changelings that can better look like humans to make them more superhumans. Because, we think of the race that the changelings created during the Dominion War, they were super beings, right? But they had to rely on this Ketracel white. They had to have something to keep them going. Otherwise, they were useless. They would die. This would be a run end around that. You have these beings that have these abilities to take over other people. They look like they're changelings, but they can mimic any human. And then they're superhumans. How bad could that end up leading to destroying the Federation, which is their end game,
right?
And getting back at all these other races who helped the Federation and fight the changelings and end the Dominion War. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Just blowing my mind here, Haley. I love the science edge you always throw. Oh, that's great. I love it. I love it. And here I was going to go, well, Mr. Tarman was just, maybe Mr. Tarman was part of the Great Link and he got shunned away because he was a dick, and maybe he was infected or something, and he was put on another planet. Maybe they're going to try and bring this whole thing with Armis, because Armis has a reason to be pissed at Picard with many other people as well.
Yeah,
but
that's her part. Like, who would be so angry at Picard? But then again, like, it has to be someone who knows science enough to know that it wasn't aromatic syndrome and that it's something else, and know that Jack has it. And Armis, if we remember, Armis was all the negative feelings, emotions from the crew, and they left them on that planet.
Could have teamed up with someone smarter, just like I'm doing with you right now.
That's true.
Now, I just want to have a little fun here. By the way, for you fans that love Star Trek figures, check this, coming out soon by Reaction Super 7. We have Star Trek figures coming out. I got pictures up here. And there's an Armis figure. See the Armis? I love it. I love the fact that he's standing right next to Riker. Because remember, Riker got sucked into that tar, and there's that famous story of
Data, something's got me.
Of him having to like deal with all that tar. But that was funny. I just decided to share that. All right, guys, we have been discussing, of course, Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 7, Dominion. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get right into the next. Oh, wait. And of course,
actually, it's 8, and it was Surrender.
Surrender, sorry. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
No, it's okay. It's been
Surrender,
a long week.
Episode 8. That's all right. Been long for me, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one, this away mission we like to, because we like to touch on some Star Trek trivia and any tropes or anything. And I don't know if you had any yourself there, Haley, but there's only a few basic trivias that we have here. And this episode references Season 1, Episode 1, where Picard states that Data has a tell when they are playing cards in a dream. I do remember that. And when Data hands over the tricorder lore, you hear a violin and viola playing Handel. Trying to remember how to pronounce this here, so forgive me. Handel Halverson's how do you pronounce
Passacaglia.
Passacaglia. Oof, that's a tough one. This was a direct callback to the TNG episode Inheritance, where Data plays this piece with his, quote, mother. Did you catch that one at all?
I didn't catch that one.
Interesting. Now, the reason why I also brought up the Armis thing and that people are talking about the Armis thing is because one of Data's memories is of the hologram Tasha Yar made before her death in Season 1 of TNG. And that comes up in this episode. But I think we're reaching, aren't we?
Armis just seems like really far out there. Like, if we're trying to like think of like all the people that this could be, that has had interactions with Picard and knows about the aromatic syndrome or hacked his records and saw about that and all that stuff, Armis would be very last on my list at this point.
I know it's silly, but boy, that would be interesting. All right. Yeah. Well, that's all I've got for trivia. But let's get into the next part here. And we are discussing The Ready Room, hosted by Will Wheaton. This has been a great companion piece, a lot of insight on the episode, behind the scenes, and of course, this week's guest, of course, is Brent Spiner. Brent Spiner's life as an android. And Brent Spiner sits down with Will in the Ready Room to talk about the many roles he's played during his Star Trek career and at the end of Star Trek Picard. Plus, we relive Will Riker and Deanna Troy's 35-year romance and more. I want to touch on the Brent Spiner interview here, first of all, and then we'll touch on the Imzadi relationship here with Riker and Troy. What I thought was interesting about this was that, and it was great because Will had a list of all of the characters that Brent has played between Data, Lore, B4, and all the Soongs, and it was 7. It was 7. Can you believe that? 7. And it was, and first of all, it was nice too to also get, and this was the first time that Will was able to talk to a crew member about everyone reuniting at the table. And Brent was great because he was talking about how, like, well, we're always talking and texting and stuff, you know, but it was magic to have all of us there, and it was a huge moment for everyone.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that I did not know, unless I have just forgotten about it, but that Key Luke, the actor, was originally hired to play Dr. Soong. And what's interesting in this interview too is that Brent said, well, I'd like to volunteer to play Soong. If I'm going to do Lore, if I'm going to do Data, why don't I do Soong as well? And apparently Key Luke was hired. And for those of you that don't know who Key Luke is, a lot of our younger generation will know him as the grandfather from the Gremlins movies. And he's the one that shows the gremlin to Gallagher's character. And then, of course, havoc is ensued later on. But he has been on Star Trek. Key Luke played Governor Donald Corey in the Star Trek episode Whom Gods Destroy from 1969. Shout out to my my podcasting brother, good friend, and former member here of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Norman Lau, was actually cosplayed as this gentleman as well. Did you know that they actually cast Key Luke to play Dr. Soong?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah,
No idea.
It was amazing. And I remember too in the interview when Brent was bringing that up, and I'm sure it was maybe a financial decision too, so you didn't have to, you know, pay another actor here. But
Yeah.
It was weird because, or cool to see Will go, I remember that now. That memory was resurfaced there. But
How neat.
yeah, it was really, really cool. And then, of course, they talk about all the different characters and versions of Data. And Brent was great because he loved that, you know, there was apparently a 3rd episode from season 1 director saying, you know, you may get tired of this. Your character, and I'm paraphrasing here, will be limited and you may not enjoy this. And it was great that both Will and Brent said, oh, he was so wrong, because look at all of these characters. And what was really cool was that Brent said to Will, I got to play Sherlock Holmes. This was a dream thing to do. I was a huge fan of Basil Rathbone's version of Dr. Holmes, and I loved doing that. And they also made reference to how he was kind of like doing these James Cagney mimic things, like tugging at his pants and doing other little things when Data got to do the gangster, and then of course just, you know, doing all these other versions of holodeck and stuff like that. And he really, really enjoyed being this character and diving into what it took to do this episode, and working with the writers as well. And it was a really, really good moment between these two fellow actors, and that it's been like 35 years. And look at this. I have this picture of all the different versions that he has played here.
Oh my gosh.
You know, all the Soongs, all the Datas. And I got 6 in the picture here, but of course that Data also, they're not showing, of course, B4 and Lore in that one picture though. But I wanted to get your thoughts on just Brent himself, because one of the things that Will said, it looked like later on you were trying to bring a little bit of yourself into Data, because the writers were starting to realize how funny Brent was, and that he was able to let loose a little bit of himself in Data. And you being a fan, obviously, of Data, what is your memory of some of, you know, his favorite moments, or anything else you want to mention of all the roles that he's played?
Yeah, well, I can only imagine, you're told that you're gonna be an android, so you're a robot, and so, you have to go in knowing, "Okay, I'm a robot, not lots of emotions," but again, he was this TNG's version of Spock, right? And so, I always thought it was great, like, I think, again, kind of the same thing, like, he was given lines, and delivering them without facial expressions or much of a facial expression, he was funny, just like Worf. It was unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire show. And so I never really thought that he wasn't funny. I've met Brent in person and he's hilarious. He's such a riot. And so I'm glad that the writers later on definitely noticed that and were able to kind of give him a little bit more humor while still keeping true to the character that Data is, and that he is a robot. I mean, I think of one of my favorite episodes just showing his range is Masks. And I know a lot of people don't like that episode and they harp on it, but he played all these characters while still being an android.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, he probably had the toughest job on the set. You're this android, you have no feelings, you have no emotions, and you're a human playing, and then you're going to be challenged to be these characters and bring forth these people who've died through, expressing that. And so I think he's just brilliant. I think the character was a wonderful choice. I love the progression that they allowed to have happen. It's crazy to think of him like now playing all these different versions of Soong. But at the time it made sense because of course, someone who goes, I'm going to make this android body so I can live forever, essentially. You're going to model it after yourself. You're not going to, that's ego right there. You're not going to make it look like somebody else.
Real quick, the comment that that Brent actually mentions, like, boy, the Soong family must have some gnarly genes because they all look alike. His response was, well, of course, they're me. Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, it makes sense that, you look at yourself. If you wanted to live forever and ever and ever, you wouldn't make an android body that didn't look like you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. There's another topic that came up in the writer room that we have to dive deep into because we've already scratched the surface a little. We had Imzadi, the Riker and Troy relationship come up here. And we had some wonderful interviews between Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis talking about their relationship. And what's really cool is they both were, even though they weren't interviewed together, you can tell that the Riker and Deanna, they get each other as characters. And what was fascinating too was that Marina started off by saying that the writers early on did not want this relationship to mature into the next level. They established that they had a past, right? And then it cuts over to Jonathan saying that it would be better to write for them if they were single and they were able to explore other relationships, which they did. But what's really funny is when Jonathan's doing this, he's like looking at the main camera, right? He's like, okay, so he's looking at the main camera and he goes, yes, they were able to explore other relationships. But the thing with Worf, and he kind of does this little thing, that was like, it was kind of weird that they decided to explore that. And then he goes on to say, Riker, says, well, Riker, you know, had lots of relationships, and he goes and looks at the other camera going, not like Captain Kirk did, though. Although that is debatable.
I don't know. I don't know.
That is debatable. But Marina said something like there would be moments that we would share. A lot of the stuff would be cut out because they didn't want to like seal this relationship and develop more. But there was certain scenes where they would do something subtle because other people were in the scene, so they couldn't cut it out. And then eventually they were able to do it. And it was basically the fans, the reaction from the fans saying, when are these two going to get together? And I'm paraphrasing by what Marina's saying, that it took the fans to really let the writers eventually go, let's kind of explore this a little bit. And then, of course, when it came to the movies, they cemented the relationship. But even Frakes was talking about how Deanna and I were such good friends. We understand this relationship between these two characters, and especially this season, the pain that they've shared, the loss that they've shared. And it was really nice when Frakes said, the things that Deanna and how strong she is and how good she is for this relationship between Deanna and Will reminds me of my own wife and how we are good and how we bounce things off each other and we work together and stuff. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing here, but that was the message that was given here. And it was really nice because they showed a lot of flashbacks to these scenes here that I'm showing here of the moments that they did share. And then, of course, they did show the scene where Worf and Deanna just had a date, I guess. And Deanna goes, you know, this was romantic, was going on with this, and all you said it was stimulating. And then Worf goes, very stimulating, you know. So we were thinking that was where things were going, and then eventually it didn't, you know. So, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this Riker and Troy relationship and how it's endured. They went through the trials, they went through the loss of a son, they didn't get divorced, and now they're on a new understanding of each other.
Yeah, I like that they are ever evolving. Their relationship has always just been something that was there and wasn't there at the same time. And so for them to evolve and move past things and move on from things, given, you know, all the experiences they've had together, they've had, you know, they've been kidnapped together, they've, you know, had all sorts of stuff go on in their lives. It's understandable because real life is not always sunshines and rainbows. And I appreciate that, you know, they take this relationship and say, here's truth, you know, here is something that, yeah, we're going to show this relationship that has its ups and downs and it has its struggles, and how do people move on from that and move forward from that and move on together or not. And so it's interesting that they never really wanted them to be together, but I guess looking back, they had their moments, they were together, but then they saw other people and they always had that connection to each other. Kind of like, you know, they were each other's safety net. So if something did happen, if something never panned out, not backup, that's like the wrong term of phrase essentially to say, but they always had that knowing that if they ever wanted to reconnect together to each other, they could.
Yeah. It's been one of those, you know, we were wondering, we wanted the same thing for Picard and Beverly too.
Oh yeah.
There's those moments like, come on, and that one where they're joined and they can read each other.
Attached. Oh my God, I love that episode.
Yeah, but they're just like, they just haven't quite sealed the deal, so to speak. But then we find out later, you know, they do, and they tried again and again. And I just wish we could have seen those moments a little bit more, but we get to see the moments with these two. Yeah. And they're like the first Star Trek couple, if you really think about it, you know. I mean, I don't know who else, you know, except for was it Paris and what? I'm forgetting the Klingon woman. Alana. What's her name? B'Elanna. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. They got together and stuff, but and then Worf and Dax, but you know, Dax then gets killed and blah blah blah. But I like that we have a Star Trek couple. You know, we get to see their wedding in one of the movies and stuff like that. So I think it's great. I'm just a big fan of them. So yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the away missions. We got just a couple more things before we head on out of here. First and foremost, hey, I wanted to give you a chance if you had any other final comments or reactions to this week's episode of Star Trek Picard Surrender.
You know, we haven't touched on it, but I know we'll probably talk about it more next week. I am so intrigued by this door. You know, I love this scene where Deanna sits down with Jack and, you know, is basically reassuring him, like, I know you don't know me, but it's kind of like me when I go into my clients and I meet with a client for the first time. I know you don't know me, but you can trust me. Like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to do anything negative. I'm not going to harm you. I'm here to help you. And I'm going to walk this path with you. And I really like that she does that, because counselors do that. Social workers, we do that with our clients, and in order to move forward. And so I'm really intrigued, and I loved that touching scene where, you know, she just kind of held out her hands and said, I know normally, you know, I let my people come to me, but the situation warrants that I come to you. Yeah. And, you know, reassuring him that it's okay. And it's so fascinating to see the fear in his face, you know, that he doesn't want to open that door. He's never wanted to open that door. He doesn't want to even go close to the door because he's afraid of it. And I'm so intrigued by what's on the other side of this door. So I'm really excited to get that in this next episode. And I'm really hoping there could go two ways. It could be something that's completely not scary at all.
Yeah, they have to tread carefully on this one. So
there's a fine balance.
Because one of my biggest pet peeve tropes, we've talked about it previously when it comes to Star Trek, is the mind F episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want this to turn into that next episode.
Yeah.
I need it to make scientific sense. And so I'm hoping that whatever this is, whether it's a memory that's being unlocked, that would make sense. You know, like being put on like a gurney and being experimented on or something. And, you know, if he was either captured or whatever as a kid, or surreptitiously turned into something that we don't know, or given an ability or something like that. I hope it kind of turns into that. It doesn't get too mind effing, you know, if you know what I mean. So that's my only caution regarding the red door thing here. I am really looking forward to it. And the picture that I showed, actually, I think is a tease for the next episode, but yeah, good call. The other thing I wanted to just shout out before we wrap this up is I love that Raffi's becoming a badass warrior with Worf's guidance.
Yes.
I want more. They're and I know that Michelle Hurd was interviewed about learning martial arts and being able to fight and be a badass, and she is loving it. The fact that she's like scaring Riker, I think, is awesome. I am really excited. I really hope she has some great moments coming up in the next episode, because I'm glad that she was one of the carryover characters from the previous seasons, and she was brought in. And I'm really, really curious to see if we're going to get any other carryover characters from the previous two seasons that might come in for the cause or something like that. So we'll see from there. Next, in the Orb of Prophecy, by the way, we talked about, of course, that we got updates with what is it here? We got Picard season 3 coming up, but we got Strange New World season 2 coming up June 15th, which is great. Excited for that. Lower Deck season 4 is to release later this summer, and Prodigy season 2 to release later in the winter. Discovery's coming in the final season for next year in 2024, and of course the announcement of Starfleet Academy series has been put out there to Paramount Plus coming soon. This is just a brief little clip showing the next episode tease of Vox is the name of the episode, episode 9. So that is going to be coming out. And the picture I showed earlier, I believe, is also a scene from it, but doesn't really spoil much because it's pretty much what we saw at the end of this episode, that we have Jack and Deanna together. So there we go. Talking about not Dominion, Surrender. Didn't change that slide. Oops.
You know, it happens. It's been a long week, you know.
But let's get into some subspace signals. This is a Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, teaming up there, of course, with the BQN. And, of course, on Union Federation, we were discussing both Star Trek and the Orville. And here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you, Haley. I know it's just us, the skeleton crew, but man, you would be interesting. You know what? I would totally fly the Titan with just you and me and see what kind of havoc and shenanigans that we can get into.
Oh, the shenanigans would be great. It would be so much fun.
I feel like you would be the person, though, that would be the voice of reason in saving us from the stupid decisions I would be making. So I'm just saying that right now.
Probably. That's a good possibility. I definitely would be the voice of reason for sure. But I can also get some shenanigans going in. So we'll see what happens.
Well, please subscribe. If you're watching us here on YouTube, we very much appreciate it. We've been having a fun slideshow with these shows as well. But please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network. So when these episodes drop, you will get instant notification. And we're also having some fun live shows too. So, and I think that we might be doing that with the final episode of PICARD. So stay tuned. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts can be found on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. And please also check out our Facebook page, the Union Federation Facebook page there. Please jump in there, ask to get in there. Of course, we're always sharing Star Trek and Orville stuff is there as well. Also, Union Federation is on Twitter and Instagram. Please check that out. And you can email us at theunionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Haley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at Trekkie01D.
Awesome. And Amy is on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and Kyle is on Twitter at AKyleW and on Instagram at AKyleFandom. Please also, if you want to give us any feedback, we love reviews and such. So anyway, Haley, thank you so much again for coming on. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, I was happy to be here. Glad I could make it.
And as Riker always says, I think we should boldly get the hell out of here.
Yes.
Goodbye, everyone. Until next week, our hailing frequencies are now closed.